Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and welcome to tonight's episode of Talking Point. I'm your host, Syed Niaz Ahmed. We have with us today Dr. Kanaan Purkayastha. He's an academic, writer, and advisor to local government UK. He's a fellow of the Institution of Environmental Sciences UK and a fellow of the Oxford Philosophical Society. I could go on for the whole evening telling you about his achievements and his associations and his positions. But we have got a lot of work to do today, so we will put it on for some other day. Welcome to the show, Dr. Kanaan. How are you today?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. It's a pleasure to welcome you anytime and every time that we have had you. We have ended up with very useful discussion. Today we want to talk about the burning topic, or rather the pinching topic, the vexing topic. The important topic is the virus or the mutation of it, Omicron. Omicron is disturbing. It has, and the entire virus scene has given us a complete new set of terminologies. Boost has been, have you got your booster? So did you get boosted? And it has something else too, but we'll talk about that later. We will also talk about how communicating the sciences can be done, how people can be told about what is happening on this front. And also Dr. Kanaan would like to talk about the historical facts regarding such epidemics and how it was handled. And then again we'll talk about, are we prepared for the next crisis, if at all that is going to be. We hope not, but better prepared, or preparation is half the battle. Yes, Dr. Kanaan, this Omicron, is it a virus? Is it a fly? Is it a bird? Or is just our imagination?
Okay. First of all, I would like to say this opinion that I put forward today is my personal opinion, not the opinion of any of the organization that I work for.
Right.
First of all. Now, secondly, this Omicron, it is a variant of SARS-CoV-2. Now, variant and mutation, there are two things. We have got a SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is actually RNA, and it has got 30,000, alphabet in it. It's, if you do the genome sequencing of this virus, you've got 30,000. Now, out of this 30,000, different position of this virus, there is a mutation happen. As for example, A become D, C become E, like that. So different location mutation happen, and after that mutation, the whole chain of this RNA become a new variant.
Yeah.
So Omicron is one of such variant, and this has been identified very recently in South Africa. It started from South Africa, though I have seen this in Netherlands Public Health Department is saying they have got Omicron before South Africa identified. But they thought that probably it has come from South Africa. But basically, it can happen everywhere, anywhere, because this is actually SARS-CoV-2, and then mutating that virus, becoming a new variant. And it is possible in all other cases, in all other, virus. Now, this Omicron, it is now in 110 countries already spread. All these six, according to WHO World Health Organization, they are saying that it is spread all over the places because it is highly transmissible. It is transmitting very, very quickly, and there is a reason for it, because it is mutated in several parts of this virus. It has got roughly, very recently it is saying that it has got over 50 mutation. And though on 23rd of December, WHO published a technical briefing note for their member state, and that note is saying that there is a 26 to 32 mutations in the spike protein. Now, very recently, there are several universities working on it, and they found it's roughly 50 mutations, and out of these, 36 on the spike protein. And that is the issue, because in a spike protein is just like it looks like a key, in a virus, which is going inside a lock. If you imagine your lock is your cell, ACE2 protein in our body, and then spike protein can enter. Now, because it has got a lot of spike protein mutated, its transmissibility is very, very high. It is highly transmissible. So the first question is how transmissible this variant? And the answer is yes, it is very, very highly transmissible in comparison with other variants, because within 2 to 3 days it can, multiply, it can be doubled. And then the next question, the WHO technical group, they also, put forward how will this vaccine and prior infection protect against infection, transmission, clinical disease, and death. Now, we always say a lot of statistics, every day we say that a lot of, that hospital admissions is increasing and this and that. But this is not the clinical marker of severity, if I say scientifically. The clinical marker of severity is the use of oxygen, not only use of oxygen, flow of oxygen. These are the clinical marker. The mechanical ventilation, number of deaths, obviously. So these are the clinical marker. Hospital admission is not the real clinical marker. Now, we don't have the detailed statistics of this flow of oxygen, who is getting how much oxygen, this and that. So we actually based on some sort of assumption that yes, hospital admission will go higher because of the transmissibility is higher in that way. And then third question is how virulent the variant is compared to the other variant. Now, when we say the virulence basically refers to the likelihood of diseases that would be, caused by that infection.
It opens the door of many other diseases.
Yes.
The chances.
Yes. We become infected, but whether this infection, the likelihood of the diseases, so that is the virulent. And in case of Omicron, so far we can see it is infectivity or transmissibility is high, but in terms of disease and death is comparatively low. That is, we can see. And obviously, the population's understanding of the dynamic of the perceived leaks, these are the issue when we deal with these sort of things. But there are some very new research finding. Last 10 days, I can say, there are research finding happens. So one is happened in Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. I have got my that original research paper, the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. And what they have found that, this Omicron, this complex structure has got a receptor binding domain. And of that Omicron variant, the human host is our receptor, which we always say ACE2 protein in our body. And generally, people who have got a diabetic, they have got a more ACE2 protein. The ACE2 protein level is much, much higher in their body. Now, that ACE2 protein normally also exists. This is one of the receptors in our human body. And then Omicron can bind very strongly with this ACE2 protein. So it is binding quickly with this SU2 protein, and as a result of that, it is transmitting quickly. So
who are the most vulnerable to be affected by this Omicron?
Yeah, one of the things is because vaccine is developing some of the immunity in our body, so it has been found, it has been observed as well that the vaccine can cause develop some of the immunity, some part of our immune system remain intact, and as a result of that, even though Omicron is binding quickly with the SE2 protein, still we are getting some protection because vaccine is neutralizing some of this, the effect of this Omicron. And
you say only some?
Yeah,
Some,
not the whole.
not all.
Not the completely protecting.
So because these vaccines have been developed, have not been developed for Omicron, but they were developed for a different, say, virus.
Yes. The vaccine is developed for same virus, but Omicron is a variant of that virus. It is actually a different variant.
You said SARS-2.
Yeah, SARS-CoV-2 is our parent, virus, but then mutated different position of this RNA and develop this Omicron. We might get next one pi, for example, because next letter in the Greek alphabet is pi after Omicron, because they are now developing, because if there is a different kind of mutation happen, and then a new variant will be developed. But vaccine can increase the immune system of our body, though it is not completely protected. It is not complete because some other disease and other things can reduce our body's immunity and it can affect us. But last couple of days, say from Christmas Day and today, there are some other research emerges from the University of Maryland and also from the Oslo. Now, their finding is the Omicron is 2.7. They said the Omicron is 2.7 to 3.7 times more infectious than the Delta variant among vaccinated and boosted individuals. Okay, vaccinated and boosted individuals, still they can be infected by the Omicron, and 2.7 to 3.7 times in comparison with Delta. Now, for unvaccinated people, there is no significant difference in the rate of infection between Delta and Omicron. They are more or less the same. So this suggests that Omicron, the increased transmissibility, can be ascribed to its immune evasiveness. It can evade our immune system, this Omicron, even though we are vaccinated. It can happen. But there are other things there. The research from the University of Maryland, Public Health, they say that the infection of, say I am vaccinated, I have boosted, but if I open my ear and if I shout or if I start singing, and if I am infected by the Omicron, then 4 out of 5 people, they have found the Omicron virus is going out of their mouth if I start singing or shouting. So that is they have found. Now,
okay, sir, we need to take a break here. And then when we come back, we'll continue with Omicron and other aspects of catching it and how people catch it and how to avoid it. Okay? Thank you. Don't go away. We'll be back soon after this very short break. Thank you. Welcome back. Our guest today is Dr. Kenan Purkayastha. He is a specialist scientist and a science advisor to the local government here in the UK. We are so lucky to have him. Dr. Kenan, I have a couple of questions and I'll leave it to you when you decide to answer them. Number one is there are mixed and confusing reports about the seriousness and the severity of this Omicron. Number two, how are we handling it And are we making any progress at all? I mean, there's a lot of talk, as you see, in the right direction. And what is the best possible way or course? Are we keeping pace with this virus, or is it one step ahead of us? And what is the reason for this rapid rise? Okay, then, the ball is in your court.
Yes, and in terms of recent research finding, what University of Maryland Public Health Department, they have seen that if we compare this Omicron with the measles, this is measles, the MMR vaccine they gave, that's measles, which is also a viral infections. If we compare this, then we see the source strength of measles is much, much higher than Omicron. Because if there is a patient in one room in the middle and somebody in the next room, he can be infected by the measles on the next room. But in case of Omicron, it has been found that the source strength is much less because it can dilute it by the time it reaches the next room. So there is the difference. And Omicron appears to have a shorter incubation period. That is the reason it is highly transmissible. It can be quickly. And Oslo Christmas party that happened a couple of days ago, and they have found in Oslo Christmas party outbreak, they have found incubation period for Omicron is 3 days. They compare. And there was a Delta virus also there, Omicron there, everything there on this Christmas party, and they have found in case of
it was more or less like a virus party.
Yes, it's a virus party, and they found Omicron is incubated within 3 days, Delta 4.3 days, and other 5 days. So these are the things happening. Then another research came out very recently from the University of Saskatchewan in Canada.
Yes.
And they suggest that in case of Omicron, potentially more virus is going to the upper respiratory tract. Then, instead of going in the deep in the lungs, it is not going deep in the lungs, rather staying in the upper respiratory tract. And then it is coming out from either nasal, mucus or runny nose, or somebody is just coughing, inhaling, it is coming out as an aerosol. It is not going to the deep in the lungs and infecting lungs. No, it is not happening like that. So in that sense, Omicron is much more comparatively polite and gentle in relation to Delta variant. So our way forward in this case is, yes, there are a lot of virus around the world. So if we just follow our 3C, obviously vaccine is increasing our immunity, but not in equal, pack, because somebody is more immune than others. It actually governed by other things as well, food and other things. But if we just follow our 3C policy.
Yeah, just a moment. Does this immunity depend on the general health of a particular person?
Yes, immunity. You can just increase immunity by using the vaccine, and how much you will increase, it depends on other factors. It's a health condition is the important thing, and food, what you are getting every day, what sort of vitamin, other things.
Right.
So
the 3Cs you were talking about.
3C is our main. We should follow the 3C. The first 3 is avoid closed space. Second C, avoid crowd, and avoid the contact. So these are the 3C, closed space.
The first
crowd.
is closest space, second is crowd, and the third is?
Third is contact, direct contact.
Direct contact.
Yeah, that is need to avoid,
You mean
so
like handshakes?
And that is the things which we should avoid, Now, when we are communicating this with the general public, so that is the issue. Communication become now going to the phase of science communication as the political communication, because science is now entered the political marketplace. And so we actually follow our third model of communicating science, which is science communication as a political communication. We actually just don't disseminate science fact to public and engage in public. Rather, we consider the social and political context, and our communication follows to the mediated realities. Yeah, the people are rely on much more on their, the newspapers and other mediated realities
Well,
through.
we can't ignore social media because everybody is on his phone looking at Facebook or some other
No.
app.
Yes, yes. So that is our third model. Basically, initially we've got a knowledge deficit model we use for science communication. Secondly, we go for a model to public engagement of science model, and the third is science communication, the political communication. We take account of it, and as a result of that, science communicator, whoever is a scientist or general journalist, they are scientists as a political advocate sometimes, media orientation of the scientific profession, the nature of modern science is also important thing. And another important thing is sometimes we misunderstanding. That is another notion of science communication. We sometimes misunderstanding. Because sometimes science communicators misunderstood the misunderstanding that are prevailing in the public arena. The science's social value and legitimacy, science's epistemological principles are not independent of the institutional form of science, because institution is the important things that is going on in the science arena. And this is not a new thing that is going on from the 385 BC when Plato established his academy, the Plato Academy. He mentioned in his academy gate in Athens that let no one ignorant of mathematics enter here. That is the language he used in his academy in 385 BC. So that means what I'm saying, that science much more become the institutionalized, and then science communicator need to understand that institutionalization of science, also medialization of science, these sort of things, because misunderstanding is prevailing within the science communications. So that is the things I can say, and that misunderstanding, people can learn from from the nature as well. There are a lot of examples in nature where people can misunderstood the misunderstandings. Like ant, fire.
Is the World Health Organization, the researchers, the scientists in different countries, and the scientific policy advisors in many other countries, and the politicians, are we on the same level? Are we communicating? In other words, are we singing from the same hymn sheet? Are we on the same level of understanding? Are we passing on to the general public the same information? Because sometimes the news is conflicting. It's not serious. It's not panicky. Don't panic. You can do without it. You can do this. Omicron is just flu, a severe flu. It can be passed on easily. It cannot be passed on easily. So there's so much, and it's very good that you're talking about how to communicate this.
Yeah,
that's very important.
That is important. That is an important issue. And then, in order to tackle this, some of the philosophical things will come. In order to understand a little bit more about the scientific issues and the problem surrounding those issues, philosophy can play a vital role. And one of these is the COVID trolley problem. We call it COVID trolley problem. That is a plague philosophy. If I want to think about in terms of philosophy, it's a plague philosophy that a trolley, a trolley is coming towards a junction of a narrow gauge railway, and then and I'm an observer there, and what I have to do, I know that I can hand operated lever I can use and then switch trolley from one track to another track. Yeah, and one track there are 5 people walking. They don't know the trolley is coming, but I can see everybody. And another track, one person is walking, but that one person is probably queen of the England, and other 5% probably I don't know. So that is the situation. This is a trolley problem. Who I will protect, using my liver. So that is a trolley problem happen in COVID scenario, in a hospital bed, in a trolley. There are a lot of patients coming. Now who will get the ventilations? Is it, sometimes they are deciding, saying that no, you are 65 years old. It is better we give this ventilation, this oxygen flow to a young patient instead of giving you the patient. So these are the philosophical problems because Peter Singer, one of the utilitarian philosophers, he said that the good should be maximized. Now, good should be maximized. He argues that there is no doubt that the potential for life measured in years is a good, but for saving younger life, we can maximize the overall good. Saving older life failed to maximize this good maximization test. It is a failure. But other philosophers come back with other argument. In UK even, some of the philosophers that I know, that they are saying that there is no objective way of measuring the quality or worth of any life at all. And they actually cite Stephen Hawking, one of their example. And at the end, it should be about survival chances. If it is about anything, age is of course a big factor, but it is not the determinator. So who should get the flow of oxygen?
Survival for all, not that 75 plus can be dispensed with.
Yeah, which
They can be denied the hospital bed or all the ventilators.
In terms of philosophy and ethics and other things, our determination should be whether the survival chance of this person is higher or okay or not.
If at all that is the case, then that will be against the medical ethics and also the oath they take when they become doctors, you see, that they have to protect life and not of 25-year-olds or 45-year-olds, but also 75 years and 85-year-olds, you see.
But there are several other philosophical things is coming here, from this pandemic, and some of them are, metaphysics and the philosophy of science. Like the government says, trust the science.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Time to take a break, and when we come back, we will have some more to discuss.
Yeah.
Thank you, viewers, for being with us. We'll be back soon after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Just before the break, we were talking to our guest today, Dr. Kannan Purkayastha. He's a scientist and an advisor to the local government in the UK about Omicron and various variations of this very, very dangerous quote-unquote virus. Yes, Dr. Kannan, we stopped short of many things. There is so much on our plate today, but infection topped 2 million before Christmas. As report says, AstraZeneca has no effect against symptomatic Omicron 20 weeks after second dose. That's a Sky News I picked up this morning. Head of NHS Confederation says the health service was facing a perfect storm. It doesn't match up, see.
It doesn't match up, and if we look at the UK Health Security Agency's data, dated 31st of December. So that data, we have got total 246,780 infection from the coronavirus infections. And within England is the highest. England is, even though we are not, no lockdown or anything, the England is 212,000, England. Northern Ireland, 12,000 roughly. Scotland 13,000, and
Well,
Wales 8,000.
they have lesser population also.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing actually. So there is the UK Health Security Agency's data as on 31st of December. Obviously, that figure can go rise a little bit after this, that's Christmas and other things. But there are other issues as well in terms of this data, because this confirmed case, because some of the how we detect Omicron, that is another thing. Yes, they said that we use PCR and we can detect Omicron, but not all places the complete genetic sequencing is happening. So there are limited places happening, and sometimes they are missing as well. And so there are other statistics going on in parallel to that, and that is the SGTF. If you look at the UK Health Security Agency data, you will find there are some data SGTF case. That means S is spike. So S gene, target failure. So when they're doing the PCR assay, PCR test, so there are some S gene target failure, reported. So that is another thing, because sometimes, because variant in human body, there are a lot of variant, a lot of virus. So sometimes, if the viral load is not higher than something, then PCR test might not be able to detect. And sometimes the S genes sometimes disappear if there is a Omicron is coming and entering the body, because S gene probably mutated to something else. So this sort of problem also exists, because the UK is a good, the genetic sequencing is done very nicely in UK, the world leader. So they can understand completely what is happening in the genetic sequencing. But overall, from the different countries that the information is coming, that is suggesting that Omicron is a virus. It is highly transmissible, because of the mutation in this spike protein, S protein, and which is spike protein, and S protein actually dictate how it will enter human cell and other places, because it is just like a pointed something, so it will dictate how. So, but they found that its effect, the infectivity towards virulence is much lower. So that is it. So there's the reason when we get conflicting informations, we can go back to the metaphysics. We can think about the metaphysics and the philosophy of science. They go and say that trust the science, but scientists are giving a very different accounts of the pandemic. So how can we judge what is true? So that is a philosophical question. It is not purely scientific questions. And then philosophers thinking about it, they're thinking about the elements of truth. So how we can think about the elements of truth. So our Royal Society, they have got one motto, the England Royal Society, and in Latin word, they said, nullius in verba. That means there is no one's word. Take no one's word for it. That is one of the motto of the Royal Society. And now, that means we should find out the truth. And the truth in this case is we need to think about the 4 criteria regarding the information source and 4 criteria regarding the information itself. So there are some 8 things there to understand the element of truth. And very briefly, I can say that one is the question of the source, basically, quality of the source, where the source is coming. And then within this quality, there is a primary source. Who is talking about what is the primary source? And then third is the independent, is this source independent? Who is paying bill for this source? This sort of question philosophers want to ask. And what is the intent of this communication? Who will be benefited? For this. So there is the information source itself. There's a core element, and then another core element is the information itself. And then, according to philosopher, the point is the acquisition. How was the knowledge obtained? These are the questions. Second is, does the information complete? That means completeness of the information. And can the information be independently validated? So the validation is there. And then, does the information appears to be unbiasedness? So these are the 8 elements of truth philosophers want to pursue. And simultaneously, philosophers also coined another term, and which is called the post-truth. So the word post-truth has already been included in the Oxford Dictionary in 2016. It's a new word, post-truth. And the post-truth, according to Oxford Dictionary, is the circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. So this is the post-truth. So some of the scenario sometimes we hear is also meet the criteria of the post-truth when there are some economy involved with the production of something, there are some economies there. So in that case, we need to think about post-truth, truth and post-truth. So these are the philosophical. So
Well, we in our trade in journalism and media, we also follow almost the same. See, whether the source is reliable, whether it can be independently verified, and what is the intention, and what impact it will have. See, the source can be true, the source can be verifiable, and if we see that the impact will be negative, then despite the fact that source is verifiable, it is correct, the information is correct, but if it has a negative effect on the masses, we would rather kill the story because it will have bad influence. Because in passing on the information is not the main idea. The passing on the right information is the criterion. The correct information, right information. Sometimes telling the truth can cause problems, you see.
Yeah. So, but other thing philosophers also thinking about, and also thinking about this the Omicron cases, how to escape the skepticism. Because if we give booster dose, then Omicron problem will be reduced and it will increase our survival rate. So that is the statement. Now, how we shall compare it? How we need to compare it with some accepted standard to test whether or not it is sound, whether it is actually booster dose is helping us. So this accepted standard must itself be examined for its validity. So you can see there are some circular reasoning is going on there. This is the question of the validity. And then Hegel considered this problem in his book, The Phenomenology of Speech, in 1807. And he explained that whether the accepted standard for testing any ideas be science or some other means of examination, if it is not itself examined, then a valid examination simply will not occur. Because if we try to test something, a vaccine's validity for the Omicron, then the way we test that test also needs to be verified. Now, Wittgenstein, an Austrian philosopher, Wittgenstein, in his book on certainty, he states that we just cannot investigate everything. And for that reason, we are forced to rest with some assumption.
Dr. Kannan, we are coming almost to the end of our program. If you can just sum it in a few words.
Yeah.
How to survive, and are we ready for the next crisis?
Basically, we need a constant reassessment and revision to our belief on vaccine. We still need to, it should be a continuous process, because sometimes we are saying the 90%, but still we need to keep it under review, because vaccine is helping a lot of people, helping
Right.
me, but we need to reassess this. And when we communicate this, we also need to think about our the political scenario as well when we communicate, and we also think about this philosophy of science in order to tackle this sort of
How many
problem.
vaccines do we have to? I mean, I have had vaccine 1, vaccine 2, the booster, and I've had a flu jab. So this year
Yeah.
I've had 4 jabs.
I had the
Where do I
same.
stop?
I had the same things, this year, and then there is a possibility we have to give the fourth booster dose a couple of weeks times.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have come almost to the end of this program. The time is over. Thank you very much for your contributions and sharing your knowledge, experience, and all the researches. It was a great honor to have hosted you again today, and we hope to see you again sometime in the near future. Thank you, viewers, for being with us, and we hope that you enjoyed the show as much as we have in producing it. Thank you. Same time, same channel, the Sunday after next. Take care.